This is Classic FM.
So it's lovely to be with the Sacconi Quartet today. I'm really interested to know, first of all, lovely to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Today you're going to be playing three pieces by Beethoven. You've got the 1800 quartet, the 1825 quartet, and then the 1826. And I just wanted to know if stylistically there's a big difference between the three.
There's a huge difference between the 1800 and then the late ones. The early quartets of Beethoven are really in the style of Mozart and Haydn. He'd studied with Haydn and he'd studied their quartets as well. The late quartets are really of a form of their own. They sound completely different, much more fragmented, crazy writing really in a lot of places, much more difficult to play as well, much more of a challenge, but hugely inspiring because they sound like nothing else before or since.
Do you have a preference?
I think it's difficult to say really. I think it is amazing to play the late quartets because there's one can put so much of one's own feeling. I think one is allowed or encouraged to interpret more in that sense, whereas Beethoven was composing more within more confines of a form in the Opus 18 set, and so really we need to feel that we're sort of abiding to a more formal set of rules, really, and those rules don't apply so much to the later quartets because he's breaking them himself, so really you are encouraged to think in a different way as well.
So you can be more creative the later it gets. He started to go deaf around 1796, so he was only 25, and then wrote his Heiligenstadt Testament in 1802. Can you notice a difference in style between those two eras, and especially after 1802?
Well, as they were just saying in the talk, the quartets, of which we've played all the Beethoven quartets, but that's what we do. We haven't played the piano sonatas, so really there isn't any quartet material to relate to before the time when he was first aware that he was becoming deaf. So it's quite hard to answer that in a quartet way, because all of the music that he wrote for string quartet was affected, or he was affected by deafness. So really, I think the only way we can trace it is by, as Robin was saying, the fact that the Opus 18s, he was still showing and paying homage to his teachers, and then as his hearing got worse and he was also maturing as a composer, the work became more abstract, whether that's through maturity or deafness or both.
Yeah, we were just having a talk in there with lots of the public that have come and people who are saying about having deafness themselves and having these problems with their ears, and they were saying that lots of as it was later there was lots of this high stuff, and in the late quartets it's so different, like Robin and Ben were saying, that the Opus 18s they're quite classical and they're kind of quite easy to listen to, but then this when they're late quartets, it's kind of crazy. And there's this really high, like almost impossibly high for like Ben, kind of like racing around the violins, kind of like completely craziness stuff, which is amazing. They've been doing all these scientific graphs and stuff and kind of trying to work it out. So look, kind of it's a bit over my head, but geeky, but it's fantastic and it's really interesting to see it. And I think we're going to learn a lot about it ourselves over the weekend. But I'm quite excited about it actually, to kind of know a bit more about the scientific side of how it's working. But it's so different, and if you heard one from the other, you would be like, whoa. It's just completely, isn't it?
Maybe his deafness set him free creatively a bit, I wonder. You never know.
It's almost like he had nothing to lose by the end. He could write whatever he felt like writing, whereas at the beginning he's under the constraints of the classical ideal and maybe getting people to actually buy his compositions, and by the end he's able to write exactly what he wants to, and he has this massive breadth of feeling, depth of emotion. He's lost his thing that makes life worthwhile.